Hi, welcome. I am Ann Pro. I am the Global Product Director for Product Management and Strategy at Evoqua within our disinfection division. And I want to welcome all of you. I appreciate you being with us today. We are going to be kicking off a four-part series focused on best practices with disinfection in the beverage industry. We're going to be looking at a combination of strategies around sustainability and really process optimization with you today. And we've got actually, this will be a great series. I think it's going to be about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm going to walk through some best practices, challenges in the industry. I've got a couple of polls, so we want to get your input as well. And then the second part of our discussion today, we're going to focus on your questions. So you are in listen only mode right now, and we are recording this session, but in the second half, we'll get into panel Q&A, and you'll have the opportunity to submit questions to our panel of experts that I have with me today. And I'm very excited about the team that will be with us. We've got really expertise across all the key areas when you think about disinfection, whether you're looking at non-chemical and chemical treatments and how you're maybe augmenting your processes today. We've got expertise to answer those questions. And as I might have mentioned, this is a four-part series. So this will be the first of four. We'll be doing one each month. Today is going to be more of an aerial view. So again, as I said, looking at the high-level challenges in the beverage industry and what we're doing to help resolve those. And as then we dive further into this series, we'll be looking at a deeper dive into UV, a deeper dive into ozone, and then as well as chemical treatment options that are also very effective in the beverage bottling process and in the beverage process overall. So with that, I want to highlight a couple of things. So we have a great registration here. This is actually a global audience. We had over 45 countries represented in the registration, which I think is a true testament to all of us in this industry, that we are all working to address and understand the challenges of water, how we protect that resource, and how we also ensure that our processes, our products are safe, and that our brands and downtime, any particular issues are addressed within these challenges that we face. So really exciting. One of the largest countries represented has over 1 billion in their total population, and the smallest under 300,000. So we are all truly striving, I think, to achieve the same end result, and look forward to talking with you on that today. So let me just do a quick intro to Evoqua Water Technologies. So we are a leading provider of technology solutions focused on water treatment for drinking water, wastewater, as well as recreational. Our goal really for you is that we bring a broad portfolio of technologies and services to help you achieve not only, not just pieces of the process, not just parts of the operation, but to help you really end to end, whether that's through product, through services, or design capabilities, help you achieve your targets that you have. We have over 100-year heritage in the water industry and are committed to continuing to serve this broad suite of industries with innovation, as well as really driving toward increasing sustainability. As we look at water as a finite resource, we all know that as consumption rises, we have to continue to look at ways to protect that, and also how we continue to make clean water available. So our focus at Evoqua is truly transforming water, enriching lives, and within that, finding ways to increase sustainability. And we were actually just honored by Frost & Sullivan as the 2021 Company of the Year for sustainability. And so that really comes from the fact that you not only see this in the products that we bring to life, but also how we as a company operate, how we as a company incorporate sustainability into our culture and our operations. So with that, I do want to jump in then really to the topic at hand, which is the beverage industry, challenges that you may be facing today, and technologies and process to help resolve that. So if we look at some of the numbers, it's actually quite staggering. When you think about water consumption is rising at a rate of about 1%, 1.2% a year. That may not seem like a big number. And I know, many of you in the industry, you know some of these, right? These are not new facts because you're working to mitigate them every day. But what that actually results in is that we're talking about 20 to 30% increase of consumption levels as you start to look at that from a cumulative standpoint. And on top of that, we already know that by 2030, that the the demand for water will outweigh the actual availability or supply by as much as 30%. So these are big numbers for us to be focused on, and certainly driving change in this industry, especially. The water industry is, or the beverage, I should say, the beverage, food and beverage especially, but beverage is one of the largest consumers of water as a part of total product, but also as a part of process and the agriculture to grow parts of the ingredients that you use every day. So as we look at that increase just generally in consumption, also the increase in consumption for commercial beverages, the industry itself is forecasted to be about a $1.86 trillion industry by 2024. I think we're at about 1.5 trillion today. So certainly sizable in impact and opportunity. Now, on top of all of that, we know that over 2 billion people on the planet lack access to clean drinking water. So certainly a challenge as we look at growth. As you're thinking about your business strategies, your operations, where your source water is coming from, and how do we balance that? And really another critical force of change, in our business, and this is really across any particular industry, but especially here in the beverage industry, is consumer demand. There globally is a much stronger demand for environmentally friendly as well as more sustainable packaging and products within this space. And so we are seeing that shift as well as customers and consumers are looking for innovation in ingredients. So we're seeing beverage companies look at how to offer more functional benefits in their products, something that actually really started to increase during the pandemic. And lastly, so we cannot overlook the fact that digital transformation is impacting really all industries. It's driving change in terms of operations, opportunities to increase cost savings, to improve monitoring, safety, compliance with regulation, as well as sustainability. So no shortage of opportunity or potential challenges that I'm sure are changing how you look at your industry as you think about your strategic roadmaps and where you go from here. Really a critical time. And as we look at then the voice of our customers, and many of you on the phone today are customers, your prospective customers. Some of you are business partners. And one of the most important things for us is hearing from you directly on what your challenges are and how we can work with you to help solve those issues. And so some of the top things that we hear, and I'm sure no surprise to those of you on the call today, right, are the focus of preventing recalls, any unplanned downtime, evolving regulatory and environmental requirements that need to be met. Certainly that is changing, not water treatment, disinfection, globally, but then also how supply chain risks and transportation challenges are affecting business operations today. We also see rising energy costs. I mean, certainly that has an impact on production, when you produce, how you produce, and what you're investing in terms of process and automation. And then lastly is really climate change and how that is impacting water scarcity. But truly, it's not just climate change, it's water management that affects our overall availability and quality of water. So these are some of the key issues that we hear from our customers. And I have actually a poll that I'm going to launch. And I'm going to give you all just a minute to go and provide us what's your top priority, what's your top concern as you look at the questions that we have here on the screen today. Okay, so you should be able to see that I've launched a poll, and you can go in and select your top issue for your business operations and what is motivating you to make changes. I'm just going to give you a couple seconds to enter your responses. The numbers are changing, continuing to grow. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Looks like we've got just about everybody who's come in and voted. And I'm going to share the results with you. So we have as the top concern that came in with this team today, with this group, is focused on the energy costs and how that's impacting production. No doubt, water is a very demanding resource, and energy to actually produce product as well. So I think no surprises here, supply chain risks and climate, as well as top priorities for this audience and for your operations. So with that, let me go back into then, it's a great segue into our discussion and where we go from here. Where we're going to go now is really the emphasis around water treatment solutions and how these are targeted to help you address the challenges you face. It's great to have your input to help even further focus that discussion today. And I do want to remind you, so as you're thinking about questions, because really this next, the next part of this discussion, I hope to seed some additional thought to get you thinking about changes or technologies you may be implementing and what you want to do about that, because we do have the Q&A period that will follow this. So disinfection, again, this is our focus in terms of water treatment today. Food and beverage in total spend upwards of almost $1 billion on disinfection technologies to mitigate challenges that you face. And so that really is intended to help you ensure that the water quality and compliance requirements that you have, whether that's starting even at the level of source water and how that impacts the flavor and the output of your product, to ensuring compliance with environmental and regulatory standards for your region and for your products. Disinfection technologies are absolutely key to enabling sustainability, whether that's improving overall within your process, your operations that allow you to have more energy efficient technologies in play. It can be helping avoid scale corrosion, cross-contamination that would require more water. So we can also help you even with reuse water strategies. The other key thing for this is that, when we looked at that poll and many of the challenges you face, with cost being one of the top, it's clear that we need to continue to focus on how we can improve profitability and help you achieve your numbers, your targets as a business and your operations, and your overall objectives within your operations. And then again, disinfection is key to mitigating unknown risks, right? So if there is any sort of contamination, microbial growth within any particular stage of your process, that can cause costly downtime, product recalls, and those are things with disinfection we can prevent for you, or help you prevent with how you implement. Okay, so let's look at a beverage processing plant. This is just maybe a more typical processing plant. And I should say that we've got companies on the call today that come from all different types of beverage processing, from breweries to wineries to bottlers, manufacturers, soda, water. I mean, really, we've got, I would say, a really nice cross segment of those in the beverage industry today. And so when you look at this map, this may not look exactly like your facility, but certainly representative of many of the key elements. So from a processing standpoint, one of the number one areas that we first look at from a treatment standpoint is that water intake. So what is your source water? Is it well water? Is it coming from a municipality? Is it some combination of that? But what level of disinfection needs to happen in that first stage of the water coming in? And there are certainly other aspects to that water treatment, right? It's not just disinfection, there will be RO, filtration, but today we're just focusing on disinfection as a whole, so you'll see more emphasis on that. You may have, as the water has been treated, it's in holding tanks or storage tanks where there's then further disinfection and treatment that potentially comes into play. Depending on the type of product and the end product that you have, you may be also processing for water dechlorination. So many steps in that process, just the water coming in, and in that manufacturing process. Then you get into the utility water treatment. So that's your boiler water, your cooling water. Many of the beverage processes today will have, whether there's pasteurization or some other heat element, that water then goes into a cooling water cycle, which can be also, the utility water section of this particular of processing is also a very high demand aspect, as you know, within your total water process. And then you also have the cleaning and sanitization. So really the challenge here for you, right, is as a beverage company, water may be your number one ingredient or maybe your end product, but you're using water throughout. And I know, within even for cleaning and sanitization, that can be sometimes upwards of 60% of the water that you're using in the facility. And so whether that's, cleaning interior, exterior, there's a whole gamut of areas that you're going to be using water and disinfection technologies in that process. And so as you think about that end-to-end cycle and how you approach operations, one of the big pieces of that is when you look at that cycle, how do you start to implement sustainability? How do you start to address some of those challenges of energy costs, of actual environmental and regulation and water scarcity and water availability? I know, and there's probably some on the call today that some of the large multinational beverage companies are leading the way with sustainability initiatives, really working to um, replace as much water as they're using. So essentially kind of getting into that neutral, not carbon neutral, but almost water neutral position of a true life cycle, that what they use is actually then brought back to the earth in a clean and sustainable fashion. So I will emphasize though, sustainability and implementing some of these pieces into your operations is certainly a journey. You don't get there overnight, and it's really a process that you start to look at where you can make changes and how that impacts your product, how that impacts your operations, and also even the bottom line. And so one of the areas that you may be considering right now is how do you reduce chemicals for disinfection, whether that's regulatory, environmentally driven. UV and ozone are both incredibly effective disinfection technologies that can either support chemical disinfection that you have within your plant today or help you reduce the amount of chemical reliance that you have. Another key area is really that optimizing operations. So how do you reduce the energy required to operate? How do you reduce that total carbon footprint? And a couple of the key areas that we see being implemented today and really are critical for that focus is how do we ensure that the cooling towers, that you're disinfecting the cooling towers to reduce any buildup, reduce wastewater, reduce the number of cycles required, as well as just even implementing technologies that are designed to improve overall power consumption. And so this may be, a multifaceted disinfection strategy, but you can absolutely achieve these results with chlorination and using less chemical UV and ozone solutions, which are really designed to optimize your operations from an energy consumption perspective. And then the third really piece of this journey is how do you get to the point where you can do more on demand, where you can do more generate on site so that you can reduce the bulk if you're use bulk chemical transportation of bulk chemicals. And so again, this gets into more chemical processes within the operations, but you can absolutely move to on-site generation, whether that's of chlorine or chlorine dioxide. Our on-site generation systems allow you to really generate just what you need on demand. So again, reducing waste. Okay, so this is actually, I think this is the best section besides the panel speakers are fantastic, but really this section gets into our case studies. I wanna share with you customer examples of how they've taken some of these strategies that I've talked about, taken these technologies and incorporated them into their processes and achieved the results. So I'm gonna come back to that initial process water. Where is your water coming from? And how do we ensure that, unfortunately, if we're dealing with municipal water, city water, if you're getting sources of water that may already have contamination, that could be, unfortunately, right, it could be pharmaceutical, chemical, other bio that could come in from that water, that in the beverage industry, you want to ensure taste quality is consistent. You don't want to have anything that impacts your shelf life. So these challenges are real challenges that we face every day, and can be addressed with the right disinfection technologies and help you achieve the results and the consistency in the product that you're looking for. So I'm going to start with this particular bottling company is one that actually that produces for a global audience or global market. They primarily produce sports drinks and teas, and they actually operate, they have a 24/7 operation and also operate as an organic bottling facility. So the challenge that this particular company faced was that they actually have multiple sources of source water. So essentially we're using both well and municipal water as a part of that main ingredient. And so the challenge that they had there is that they had, of course, to ensure they have consistency in the product, that they've got that they're not introducing anything in terms of contaminants into the actual product itself. Because they had multiple sources, it required treatment. And then the other thing is they also had fluctuations in flow. So that really created a challenge for them that prior to implementing a UV solution had cost them downtime and product recall because of that inconsistency of the water coming in, as well as the treatment of it in the process. And so we worked with them to implement a UV system that's actually validated for drinking water. And the benefit really of this is not only did it allow them to treat the water coming in and have a very consistent ingredient water, but it also automatically adjusts to flow. So it made it from a just overall operations, became fully integrated into the system, helping reduce any additional, manual operation or changes to that process. The next customer example I want to share with you gets into that utility water treatment. And as we talked about, this is another big area, extremely demanding on water and supply of water within your process, but also one where, because we're talking about storage, we're talking about heated water, that there are certainly new areas of contamination that then come into the process here that we want to try to prevent any sort of deposit scaling, things that are going to require you to use more water, more cycles, or even prevent you from being able to reuse that water. Because truly, if that water is treated and continually monitored and managed, there's opportunities to also create a reuse for that water. And so this particular company is was looking to address their cooling circuit, and they were dealing with issues of water fouling and biofilm buildup that they needed to address. And so with actually implementing our on-site generation chlorine dioxide system, they were able to reduce the risk of the hazardous contaminants, actually eliminate the risk of hazardous contaminants, prevent fouling, and improve the overall efficiency of the cooling circuit. And by doing that with the on-site generation, again, we get into how do we talk about, improving efficiency, reducing your production costs. By doing this on demand, it's really just generating what's needed for the facility, and also then really aligns well to workplace safety requirements. Okay, we're getting close to the discussion with the panel, so hopefully you are all, starting to think of the types of questions you have, and this has given you some good insights for maybe you're in the process of making changes here, or maybe you're in the process of using technologies like this and have questions for our experts. But one of the, another very critical element of your process is that clean in place, ensuring that whether it's fruit juices or, whatever your product may be, sodas, that you're able to clean the interior of those operations. And this is for us, again, another we'll see a very high demand on fresh water. If without the right technologies, it may require multiple rinses, could require unplanned downtime. And really with UV and ozone disinfection, we can provide you a very targeted application that again gets you into achieving your results on the first pass, second pass, without having to schedule downtime to do further cleaning. And so this actually example is a soft drink company that was facing challenges with contamination even after their clean in place process. And so this was actually, unfortunately, affecting them in the way that it would cause unplanned downtime to production to further clean the equipment. And so they were able to they are using two of our disinfection technologies. They implemented one of our ozone systems to be a part of that clean in place process. And then because again, it's a soft drink company and wanting to ensure flavor and, that ingredient mix was exactly what they each bottle would taste the same. They actually included our UV wafer system to also destroy any ozone that would have been still in the water after the application. Ozone breaks down very quickly back into oxygen, so there is not a byproduct, but this is just a way to ensure that you have, that again, that ingredient and that flavor and everything maintained at the ultimate integrity that you're targeting. So another great example here where a combination of disinfection technologies is going to help you achieve your results, reduce downtime. And so again, ROI payback is very quick when you think about some of the risk in this overall process. Okay, and so this is the last example I'm going to share with you, and this is getting into cleaning and surface disinfection. And this really, as we talked about, I think I mentioned earlier, can be as much as 60% of the water that you use in your facility, even if your number one ingredient is water in your product. Oftentimes, surface cleaning and disinfection has a strong dependency on chemicals, and this can, lead to whether it be cost, safety, or just overall issues that you may be looking to take out of your operation. And what we're able to do here is, again, work with you to help match you with the best fit in terms of technology, and whether that's on-site generation of chemicals that allows you just to use less, have it very targeted, really from a safety standpoint, designed to improve process there. And then if it's not a chemical application, again, UV and ozone are also very effective technologies for surface cleaning and disinfection as well. And so this last company, actually another beverage company, they operate in a region, an environmentally protected region. And because of this actually put a higher standard on what they could use in terms of chemical in their process. And so even with surface disinfection, their requirements were that they had to remove chemical from a surface disinfection to meet the compliance that they needed to be within for that region that they actually operate. And so here in this instance, they were able to use our portable ozone system. So essentially able to move the system with them where they needed to be and achieve all of their surface disinfection targets and operate safely within the environmental requirements that they had. So as you can see, in a number of different approaches, different applications, I mean, this is certainly just, a handful of many different approaches that can be used for disinfection technologies, and really trying to capture kind of that end-to-end process and how to integrate systems into that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we offer a complete portfolio of disinfection technologies. I think really exciting, making it easy for you. We can continue to work with you, augment your system, augment your process as needed. And then we also bring with that all of the monitoring and control technologies to ensure that the levels to ensure any microbial contamination is detected and eliminated from your process. Oh, you know what? One thing I would want to do here, and I'm going to launch one more poll before I jump into the panel. So I went through a lot of information, right, talking about sustainability and the products, the technologies that help you achieve the results from a disinfection standpoint. And in the earlier poll, we talked about the fact that you shared with us your top issues right here and now. As you think about your strategy and your plans for the future, I'm going to launch this poll to ask you again, if you think 5 years from now, looking at some of the examples that I shared with you, what your top issues will be, please go ahead and select how you see your business evolving and the challenges with that. Okay, these are coming in really quickly, and a high, I don't want to bias anybody, but a very high focus here on climate change and water availability. And I think no surprise with that, right? As we kicked off the discussion, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and I'll share the results with you. But as we kicked off the discussion, right, is that climate change, water scarcity is absolutely a growing issue and a number one concern. So no surprise that that comes in as 5 years looking out, your number one area of focus. Okay, so just to recap, we are here to work with you. We are excited to have, as I said, such a great turnout today. I want to remind you this is a 4-part series. So today was very high level, looking at process and operations and how we can work with you to address those energy costs, help ensure you keep your plants running efficiently and safely, as well as ensure that your product, your number one, your consumer, your brand are all are all maintained and protected as well. So I am actually now going to invite my panel to join me on screen. And I have brought with you, we've got decades of experience, over 100 years of experience if I add up everybody here on the call with me and their expertise in the industry. So Tony Lee, who is with us today representing our UV product portfolio, has over 30 years working in the UV industry, and he leads our product strategy and the product manager for that. I've got Shailesh, who leads our gas feed chlorination as well as our chlorine dioxide products. Ryan Flood, who is leading our ozone. We've been keeping Ryan busy there with that, and also our on-site generation of chlorine. And then Sueli, who she has over 25 years working in the food and beverage industry and a resident expert really on application of these technologies across your process and across the industry. So I see I've got Tony, the rest of you are all joining me here. Tony, I'm gonna actually start with you. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick off. I've got a question on screen. I'm gonna give you all a moment to start to submit questions that you may have. If you look at your control panel, you should be able to just go ahead and submit questions in that control panel that we will work to answer for you. But I wanna start with, since we've got this focus on climate change, I'm gonna start with the sustainability and how achieving those sustainability targets are impacting your operations. And Tony, let me start with you just on what you're seeing with our customers and how that's changing overall process.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks for joining. It's nice to see such a large audience, and I thought the polls were quite interesting as well, particularly the one that talks about power consumption. So obviously one of the key sustainability targets globally across multiple industries is reduction in carbon footprint, and obviously power generation is a huge part of that in terms of CO2 emissions. So how does that impact on our operations? Great example earlier on about selecting a UV unit with power variability. So you can actually tune the system to work at different power levels depending on the particular process demand. So obviously that's quite an important way of saving power. That's probably going to save 10 to 15% of power in a stable system, and in a variable system you could save up to maybe 50% or more of your power consumption. But all that's not going to be very effective unless you can communicate with the devices in the field or the treatment process in the field and make sure that they have all the data that's required to actually make that judgment. So for example, if you want to vary the power of a UV unit based on flow, the UV unit needs to know what that flow is going to be. And in the future, I think what we'll see more and more in order to minimize power and probably waste as well is digitization of equipment. So equipment will increasingly be able to talk to each other, provide big data to factory control systems, and really progressing more and more towards smart factories is a great way of actually implementing the benefits in a system which can be tuned across the factory to minimize consumption. So I think I see that is a key driver in the future.
Thank you, Tony. Agree.
I fully agree also.
Yeah, jump in. I'd love to hear your take.
And additionally to all the points related to energy consumption by the control of the equipment and monitoring and traceability with all the analyzers that can indicate you the right amount you have been targeting. The other point are alternatives that can be seen either on cold applications that you can avoid the heating, and with the right disinfection, like with ozone, for example, it's becoming very popular, the cold CIP. What would additionally to save your energy, because what you have to put up on the heat, you have to cool down. So you can also save some of the water and reduce the water footprint. So these are 2 points I think that are the most important when approaching the sustainability targets.
Excellent. And let me also go to the other question that we have here on the slide, which is focusing on water reuse and also reducing water footprint and how process and technology can help companies achieve that. And so Ryan, I'm going to come to you on that question and just would like to hear what you see being implemented or how you see this changing in operations.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Yeah, and I think this has been a great presentation so far. So it's great seeing again, as Tony said, all the people on here. Yeah, so in the beverage facilities, water reuse can really start to be thought here as water use optimization. So we know most of the facilities nowadays will have some sort of metric around their water use ratio, especially companies where they're in the public space. They're going to have to start to advertise that, again, as Tony and Julie were talking about in terms of their sustainability goals. So there becomes an inherent need to reduce the amount of water used without compromising the product's quality. So by using inland water treatments like ozone, chlorination, and UV, this water can be treated and ultimately reused for further treatment methods within the facility. So, for example, if the water can be used, in the bottle warming process, it can then also be recirculated around through a closed loop with ozone injection to maintain the desired residual throughout the process. So this can prevent, pathogens and bacteria from growing within the facility. And this same water could be used, or rather reused, for downstream applications such as cleaning out equipment tanks or bottle washing downstream, via side stream CIP processes. So these approaches can also allow facilities to start to use reclaimed water or tertiary water with their methods on site, which can also start to really become more of an economical and environmentally sustainable solution here. So again, kind of tying back into sustainability piece of this, again, without compromising the quality of their products.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Ryan. Shailesh, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so basically when we are looking at food and bev, I would like to, address it in two ways. Number one is the water that is under treatment for the process. The disinfection technology should be selected very carefully because that is directly related with the product and the quality of it, ultimately the profitability of that particular organization. When we come to the utility, then there are unavoidable situations, and I'll give example again on the cooling tower where you have a contamination, scaling formation, and obviously you need to have some chemical treatment for that. So when we are selecting a disinfection technology for that, we say chlorine dioxide is the best because that's the one which do not react with all those chemicals and at the same time achieve the high level of disinfection. So as Evoqua, I would say that it's not just one technology that we would like to push on, but then depending upon your application, water characteristics that we are dealing, I think it should be looked from that perspective.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to now turn to, we've got questions that have come in from attendees here in the audience, and so I want to start with the first question that I have is actually related to how these solutions are applicable for poultry houses and processing plants. And I'm looking to Ryan or Shailesh potentially for this, but I'm going to actually, who would like to jump in on that one? Because I know absolutely yes, and if anybody has some experience I'd like to share for the audience.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience in that
Okay.
in my 34 years, probably going back more than 20 years, but certainly one of the largest poultry producers in Scotland actually implemented a UV solution on every chicken house to actually get the water treatment up so that, and what they were seeing was that they was improving the speed of growth of the chickens and the poultry within those poultry houses, and they tended to do most of the advanced treatments on the premium birds, obviously the birds that they're using to breed for the next generation and then breeds for the final chicken. So I have seen UV used definitely in that process in the past.
Okay.
I would say from the ozone perspective, it's definitely used as well. I think one of the good ways it was used at a facility that I visited was they're actually treating what they refer to kind of as their turkey logs, where they're creating the sliced turkey, and they were treating it with ozone, and with that, it actually significantly improved their shelf life. So it not only removed the threat of bacteria on it, but allowed them to broaden their reach with their product.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. I want to jump to the next question that we have here, which is actually, Ryan, I'm going to come back to you, focusing on surface disinfection with ozone-treated water. And how do you ensure residual contents to perform disinfection once the surface is treated does not create a residual as other traditional disinfection agents?
Yeah, so I think if I'm following that question correctly, it's how ozone is essentially providing the surface disinfection and sanitization without the residual. So ozone itself does have a very short residual, so it has a very short half-life, and so that gives it a really unique ability compared to some of the chemical disinfections, where it can provide the high level of disinfection, where it has a very high oxidation potential, but then it allows it to revert back into oxygen. So it allows it to be in a very safe and effective manner with it, and has been proven. So, in our experience as a company, it's been 30+ years using it and have used it very successfully. But ozone itself has been used for disinfection and sanitization practices for over 100 years at this point. So it is a good use, and it really, again, will come back into what you're trying to treat. And how much contact time. So the concentration and contact time become really critical in those regards, and you'd have to really work through what that would need to be to make sure you're dosing the right amount to provide that, just like you would with chemical-based treatments as well.
Okay, good. I have one more here on the list, and so those of you, if you have questions you want to input into this, I've got a couple more to cover. One more that I want to pull up here that came in the questions within the control panel, which is around how can I prevent microbial growth before membrane and activated carbon? So I'm going to look to my panel.
Look, there are different possibilities here. The key point is that you want to protect your membrane for getting a biofilm growth. So basically, the most popular, and Tony will help me on this if he agrees with me, you see just in front of ROs or ultrafiltrations, you will have a UV, because you are protecting at the point of entrance before entering the membrane, that you are destroying as much as possible the different pathogens.
Yeah, I would also say that other alternatives such as chlorination before a membrane is generally not desirable. So UV will have no damaging impact on the membrane. So that's another reason for, particularly with the high cost of membranes, that's another particular reason to put the UV before the membrane to essentially reduce the bioburden. Yeah, I agree.
What you can see is after the membrane filtration. There you would have, for assuring stabilization on the storage tanks. There you may see in some facilities, or even in more and more facilities now, you will see short ozonization to avoid that there will be or to reduce the risks of contaminants in the storage tank.
Okay. Anything else, Tony, that you were going to add to that?
No, that's
okay.
Completely agree with.
Okay.
Well.
I think we have time for just about one more question, and I actually want to come back, Tony, to you on this one, which is, what is important when selecting a UV system for the water between the storage tank and the filler?
Yeah, I guess the question is that a good location between a storage tank and a filler? And the answer to that is yes. UV is best located close to point of use as possible because it doesn't have a residual. And it is important to consider water quality after a storage tank. So although you may treat the water into the storage tanks have to breathe on fill and empty, of course. So if you've not got proper sterile filters on your air intakes, that can be a problem in the storage tank. So you can get airborne organisms, for example, that may be different from waterborne, but they can actually get into the water, and they can often be spoilage organisms. So I think it's really important that you make sure that you treat water after storage tank. And also to remember, the headspace of a storage tank can often become contaminated on the surface, and any CIP treatment systems may not be as effective if you're not fully immersing the tank. So I would say yes, it is important to size a UV unit post storage tank, because you can't always rely on sterility in the storage tank.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we are at our time that we had planned for this today, and so I just want to take a quick minute to wrap up and thank the panel. If you had questions that we didn't get to, we will definitely make sure we get the questions and answers out to all of you. This session was recorded and so will be made available. So if you have colleagues or others that weren't able to attend today, they have access to this. We'll be sending that out. And just as a reminder, we'll jump much deeper into the UV disinfection technologies in January, followed by ozone in February, and then the chemical disinfection side for your processes in March. So look forward to seeing you all again. I appreciate everyone's time and attention today, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your participation.